I think it's just becoming undeniable that it is a force that especially now that institutions have to consider it as a new asset class, because we've also put out there, I actually put it out in 2016, Bitcoin ringing the bell for a new asset class. We showed the correlations of returns. The correlations still, even though traditional investors are getting involved, the correlations with other assets still very low. It's absolutely essential that institutional asset allocators take a look at this asset.
2014, I think it was.
Yes.
You put Bitcoin into your portfolio.
Well, 2014 was our first blog. 2015 was our first white paper. And we put, we gave our clients exposure to Bitcoin, GBTC, at the time the only thing we could use, in 2015, between $200 and $250.
All right.
Oh, by the way, we faced so much resistance.
That's what I was going to ask you about. Explain what the reaction was.
No, from everyone, including, we had to ask permission. We had to ask the New York Stock Exchange permission to put it in. I don't know all the rules and regs, but they said, okay, yes, but only 1% of the portfolio. But they didn't tell us that we had to sell it if it went higher. So we just never sold it until the end of 2017, where other regulations and the pushback from traditional financial service really hit. We were scaling our business, meaning our ETF business, which is all around all kinds of disruptive innovation. And so, boom, but we were not getting on platforms like Merrill, Morgan Stanley, and others, because our flagship had Bitcoin in it. And so we then decided, okay, we're going to keep it in next generation internet, but flagship right at the top, $20,000. Better lucky than smart.
You every year put out a big ideas list, and it's all the things that you guys think are going to be important for the next year, but also you highlight a lot of innovative technologies. And I think why you are so loved is because you're constantly thinking about where the world is going and which technologies are going to play a big part there. Bitcoin has been one of those technologies for a long time, but it is not operating in a vacuum. We now are seeing things like artificial intelligence and humanoid robots, even self-driving cars. And it feels like when I read the big ideas and listen to you talk, these things are all coming together. And so talk a little bit as to how you see Bitcoin's role in maybe the broader innovative technology bucket and how these things will all kind of work in unison as we kind of build the future.
Yes. One other pushback we got, just to say, when we first put it in, we were kind of new to the business, and the most famous ETF publication of the time made fun of us, saying, yeah, great marketing gimmick. And my answer to that was, great, they have no idea what this is. They have no idea. Anyway, yes, so we just put out earlier this month something called Big Ideas 2025, and we've become fascinated with the convergences among all of the technologies around which we have centered our research. So we've centered our research around the 5 major innovation platforms evolving today. So as you said, Anthony, robotics, energy storage, artificial intelligence, blockchain technology, and multi-omic sequencing in the life science space. AI, if you look at the convergence chart in that deck, and compare it to the one we put in last year, what you see are the convergences are intensifying with AI, really the heartbeat of convergence, pushing everything along and accelerating the pace of change, and also accelerating the deflationary undercurrents. And I know this is very controversial, but accelerating the deflationary undercurrents that we believe are going to intensify. Deflation, not bad deflation, good deflation. When you cut prices, you enable more access, right? So if you look at the convergence chart, we've focused, of course, on blockchain technologies and agentic AI. And I'm sure people have talked about this today, no?
No.
Oh, okay.
Teach us, Cathie.
All right. Have you heard of agentic AI? Yes?
Yes.
So I wish when I started ARC, I wish I had an agent who I could just say, I want to start this company. Tell me what I need to do legally, operationally, marketing wise. And you just, you can do that today. And of course, DAOs, back in 2016, we heard distributed autonomous organizations. People were saying, that's crazy. And we were saying, no, something's going to happen that's going to enable this new world. And so the world we're moving into, let's say I start up my business and, my agents that I put on each of these tasks, has to facilitate payment, from one to the other. And however we structure the organization, it can't be done with fiat now, the way we're set up. It probably only can be done with blockchain technology and crypto assets of various types.
And they think that when the United States, when not if, finally capitulates and buys Bitcoin, the price of Bitcoin will look like a vertical line straight up. Forget the price impact for a second, but what do you think the odds of a strategic Bitcoin reserve are, let's say, this year?
This year, again, it's a high priority. I think this this issue became a one-issue voter issue, right? And the president is going to make good on his promise because this really helped bring in the young people. And so I do, and Senator Lummis has done. I heard she was here, but she's done an amazing job. She has an incredible staff. So I do think it will. I do think it will happen. Now, I know there are controversies out there. There are truly some, the confiscation of some Bitcoin, that was truly illicit and criminal and all of that. There are questions about others. And then there's the other question is, wait a minute, are you really then going to get all the way up to 1 million Bitcoin? How do you do that? How do you fund it? Well, our gold is at cost on our balance sheet. Land is at cost. I learned from Senator Lummis that a third of the land in the United States and 50% in Wyoming is on our country's balance sheets at cost. Think about that. Think about that. We could sell a little bit off, and we could definitely, and same with gold. Same with gold.
Do you think that countries will drop gold to buy Bitcoin, or do you think they both win together?
I'm sorry.
Do you think that countries will sell some of their gold to buy Bitcoin, or do you think that this is an additive thing?
I don't know the answer to that, but as they're scraping around looking for alternatives, it becomes a diversifier, I think, because even relative to gold, Bitcoin is a diversifier. The correlations are a little higher than to other assets, but still not quite there. There was something, the other thing I learned today was that there are 50 bills going through 22 states right now around Bitcoin reserves. So that's very interesting. Texas, Arizona, and Utah, I think, have seen progress within the last week, which is very exciting because Texas and California, each of those states is bigger than Canada. And of course, Canada is is huge in terms of a gold resource base. Government adopters of Bitcoin would be in the emerging markets because they live in such a chaotic world that is, they are battered every now and then by the dollar's appreciation, and which, they've got a lot of dollar denominated debt. They run their company, their countries on their own currency, and they're losing out constantly. So I've been very surprised that the U.S. really, I mean, yes, El Salvador was, was there, but the U.S. is leading the charge here, and I think it's going to serve us very well over time.
I want to talk about the economy moving forward over the next year, 2 years, 3 years, because I think that's going to have a very big impact on Bitcoin. Let's start with Doge. They say they're slashing costs. Every day they're tweeting some ridiculous use of taxpayer money. What is your confidence level in their ability to be successful? But also, how do you think that affects financial markets? So much of asset prices going up has been that the government is incredibly bad at their job and they waste a lot of money. So we devalue the dollar and asset prices go up. But if Doge is successful, does that actually hurt asset prices?
Oh, no. I actually think this is, I started in the business, well, I was in college in the late 70s, but really here in New York in the early 80s. And it was the Reagan Revolution. And he was changing. I mean, the 70s were just a horrible decade. And so there was a similar kind of an election and a willingness to change. I think we're well known for our Tesla research and our Tesla position. So I don't speak to Elon that much, but when we talked about this topic, I said, government spending is taxation. Government spending, that's how you sell this. Surface everything that you find out there, because, we haven't done that. We haven't cleaned house in so long. And I think, Elon is relentless, and he's got a boss who's also relentless. So I do think it's going to be successful. I think it's going to drive huge increases in productivity as well. So Reagan Revolution, I think this revolution will dwarf the Reagan Revolution, but I grew up in the heyday of active asset management. Now everybody kind of is passive or benchmark sensitive. Those were the glory years. And I think we're going back to the glory years. I think deregulation, I think on monetary policy, I do believe that one of the reasons Trump has become such a fan is, it's good competition for the dollar. And he wants that. He wants, monetary policy to be influenced by it. I don't think he wants the dollar to go away, and I don't think it will. But I think we're going to have, Bitcoin and the dollar as the two sort of reserve currencies out there.